Nowadays, circuit boards are put together mainly by machine. As you can see, these machines here are AI machines, automatic insertion machines. And what they do, behind them you've got rows of components. The computer takes off the components it needs, and each component is tested by the machine before being put into the circuit board. It then bends the legs, puts the component in the circuit board, and then cuts the legs and bends them over. So all those components are loose in there, but they won't fall out because the legs are cut, and that's ready for soldering. The machine will put in 3 components every second, which obviously you can't compete with as a human being. You couldn't put that many components in and test them at the same time. But it does require the large components to be put in. So the circuit boards then go down to the lines here, where the girls put in the large components before the circuit board goes through the solder bath. Okay, the circuit board, when it's got all its components in, is fed through the solder bath, which creates a wave of solder and solders the whole of the circuit board in one go. And then that circuit board will be tested at the end of that line before it goes over to the chassis. The complete circuit board. This is for an AVT 275. The smaller components were put in by the automatic insertion machine. Your larger components were put in by the ladies on the line, and then the whole board is sent through the solder bath, which creates a wave of solder and solders the back of the board all in one go. Okay, this is the finishing department. Now we've got our own wood mill just the other side there. We make the wooden boxes for the amplifiers. This is the wood mill. We're making 8,000 boxes every month in here for the production. You will notice that people walking around, they've got to wear ear defenders because it's quite noisy. But they don't have to wear masks. We've got an extraction system in here that is absolutely fantastic. All the tools that are being used have got their own extraction hose on them, which takes away all the dust, all the sawdust out to be taken away and disposed of. Now in here you'll find routers cutting out the boxes. I mean, the machine in front of you now is a large router. It cuts out chassis in one go, all controlled by a computer and one person. But as you go around, there's more intricate jobs which are made on smaller routers by individuals. When you're making the amount of boxes that we need to make every day, you notice the joints all put together, all square. First thing you have to do is glue them. And to enable us to glue them and work on them straight away, we use what is called a radio frequency oven, basically like a microwave oven. So for instance, a 4x12, the corners would be, the joints would be put together, clamped in place in here, then the front door is shut and that microwaves the corners in, and so a few seconds later it comes out, the corners are stuck, the glue's dry, and we can work on it straight away. And at the end of the process, for the wooden box, everything is finished off by hand. As I say, even these hand sanders, the extraction system will take the dust away so it's comfortable for the people working. And everything's finished off to make sure the wood is perfect. During the production, people sign the inside of their boxes. This is something which started back in the 70s when Mr. Marshall used to work in the finishing himself. And he used to make, at that point, made everybody working on an amplifier put their initials or their name inside so he knew who had worked on it. Because if he had anything come back, he wanted to know who had made it wrong so he could put them in the right direction and have it done right next time. Now, interestingly, a little while ago, we had a chap come in with an early 70s 4x12 and the speaker had blown. Nothing had ever gone wrong with it before then. And we had it into the service, we took it out, took the speaker out to replace it, and pointed out to him that it had Mr. Marshall's signature inside it. And he was chuffed to bits when we told him that it means that that amplifier, that speaker cap, had been made by Mr. Marshall himself. Yeah, because of the adhesive we use nowadays, it's all water-based. The boxes have to be heated up to 40 degrees. So we run them through the heaters here, heats them up to 40 degrees. The inside of the front of the boxes are sprayed black, so there's no reflection when they're on stage from the white wood. and then they're covered up. And that, by heating them up with these heaters, they're still hot when they go on the bench for covering. Okay, this is a covering department. You'll notice, if you were here, you would notice that you can't smell the adhesive anymore. Now, when I was a young lad, I used to come to the factory with my dad. The overwhelming aspect of this area was the smell of the adhesive, and you'd go out sort of high by the end of the day. Nowadays, it's all water-based. So what we have to do, when we make the wooden boxes, we have to heat them up to 40 degrees C. So when they come to this stage, the boxes are still warm, and the adhesive will then become tacky and be able to stick the cover into the box. Now you see, we are doing a white one here. This is actually just for a display unit, the 1959 display unit. But you know, we've talked before. We said we make 8,000 units a month in the factory. That means 8,000 boxes have got to be made, and 8,000 boxes have got to be covered. Now these chaps here have got to work hard. You can't automate this process. All the amplifiers are different. You've got to be so careful in doing the covering. The corners have got to be perfect, especially on the hand-wired amplifier boxes, where there's no plastic corners to go on. So this is a very skilled area. And it's a hive of activity. It's busy all the time, right from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock at night. It's non-stop in here. This is where the whole thing comes together. The circuit boards are put into the chassis, and they come through as complete chassis on these trolleys. The guys here, they put the speakers into the combos or the speaker cabs. They put the chassis into the tops. They put all the handles and the corners on. They basically put everything together for the final time. And finally, the amplifier is, the speakers are put in the cabinets. The Marshall logo is put on the front of the baffle, and the whole cabinet or the speaker cab or the amplifier is sent off through for final testing before getting packaged up and sent off to the customer. Okay, well, this is an anechoic chamber. When you produce any electrical equipment, it gives off radio frequencies. And what we have to do in here is make sure that the radio frequencies does not interfere with a certain bandwidth, which emergency services and such is. So in here, this room is called an anechoic chamber. It's designed to allow us to fire the radio frequencies and then not to bounce off the walls, which actually makes the room 96.4% soundproofed as well. That's sort of a byproduct of the design. The equipment you're testing is put on a table. It's approximately 3 meters away from the area which we're using, and all the new products have to be tested in this manner. And by having our own anechoic chamber enables us to control when we're going to test it and make sure it passes before we send it away to an external agency, which actually have to pass it for the British standard. And we also, in the approvals department, we make sure that the equipment cannot have their channels changed if someone's using a mobile phone next to you. So that, you know, if you're on stage, the last thing you need is someone's mobile phone going off and your amplifier changing channel. So we make sure there's no interference in that respect as well. When the amplifier's packaged up in the box, we then shrink wrap the box to keep everything nice and neat. It's got to be handled. We don't want the box getting torn, accidentally opened. So it's just for added safety while it's in transport. What we do, it gets covered in the plastic. Then just behind the curtains you can see in front of you, there's heaters which heat the plastic up, which makes it shrink around the cardboard box. As you can see in the warehouse, there's quite a lot of stock already boxed up. This is because most of our goods are made for the export markets, with America taking about 40% of what we make, and 10% staying in the UK. And we're producing 8,000 units each month in the factory here, and most of that has been ordered 3 months in advance by the export countries. So what we do here, we produce it, it gets packaged up, shrink wrapped, then gets put in line for its country, its designated country. And as soon as the container comes in, you can see back in the far corner, the container